Hi everybody, this is Anne. Personally, I began painting many years prior to attending my first pottery class, so painting on pottery was like painting on a new canvas for me. But I get a lot of messages from people with a lot of questions about underglaze painting imagery, from what brushes to use, what colors to start with, and telling me they're intimidated to do their own drawing. In this video, I'll take you through the most basic steps to get you started painting with underglazes by demonstrating this elegant floral project. And by the way, I have much longer in-depth workshops with detailed instructions and projects for underglaze painting if you're interested. Check out the workshop series link in the description. The type of brush you use really matters. You want something that'll withstand the harsh underglaze materials. You want a brush that will hold its shape, and you want the right shape for your design. These brushes are actually fingernail painting brushes. They're synthetic and designed to be used with harsh materials. This one's called a fan brush after the shape, of course. When using any brush, I always wet it down, then wipe the shaft of the brush off on a sponge to avoid drips before dipping it into my underglaze. Afterwards, I dab off the excess. To apply the underglaze, I just lay the brush down to capture the shape of the brush. You can also play with different strokes by laying the brush down, then dragging it or twisting for a pointier tip towards the stem. This is a long-bristled, angled brush. With this brush, you can apply the underglaze by just dragging the brush straight down. You can apply the color at an angle, then twist the brush towards the brush tip to gain that edge along the bottom. You can also start at the angled edge, then twist the brush to the wider part in the center and ending at the angled edge at the bottom of the stroke. Now here is a double-angled brush. I can start at the flat side and drag the brush straight down. I can also start at the flat side, then push down on it for a wider stroke, then pull back up on it towards the bottom of the stroke. This is also a good brush for making circular strokes. This is a number 6 round brush. Note the sharp tip on the end. If my brush splays out upon wetting it, I twist the bristles with my fingers to get back to that point. Again, you can start at the tip and drag it straight down. Or you can experiment by adding more and less pressure to the bristles and even twisting the brush to the point. Note how the paint thins out where there is less pressure, but puddles where you've applied more pressure. That'll give dimension to your stroke when it dries. The detailer brush is an essential for outlining. It's important to have just the right flow for your underglaze, just wet enough to flow smoothly, but not too wet to puddle. It also takes a light touch to play with the thickness of your line. Let's talk about drawing basics. In this particular project, we're only using simple geometric shapes and lines, period. The good news is that nature is full of shaky asymmetrical and freeform shapes, so to draw them, you can't make a mistake. Here's one of the designs I'll be painting on the project. I'm simply connecting straight-lined vines and topping them with a straight leaf shape. On this next one, I'm simply connecting each leaf shape off of that one vine. Now I'll draw some berry shapes connected from a tangle of branches. You can make it as branchy as you want. Don't be afraid to play with the shape of the vine itself and give it a few kinks. The leaves on this one will be turning, so I started by drawing it like a figure 8, but just stopped before the line connects to itself. Then I go over to the opposite side of the line and connect it back to itself. Do you see how it appears to curl around? I just simply continue to connect more little branches and leaves. Now let's make a few ginkgo leaves. They start out in a wide V shape, then I connect the two sides with a scalloped edge. Easy peasy. Now let's create our palette. I'm going to use a little black underglaze for the outlining. For the rest of the colors, I'm going to create a muted palette, and I always choose colors to represent each side of the primaries of the color wheel. For the blue side, I'll use the Amico Baby Blue. This color has a great muting ability. The reds will be represented by Amico Bright Red. I'm using Intense Yellow for the yellow side. Now I've already drawn my design onto the cup. As you can see, they're the same patterns I drew for you earlier. I just added a carved design along the bottom edge for variety. I'll first show you how I mix my paints. I want all the colors to be tied together for cohesiveness, so I'm going to use the baby blue for the base of all of them. First, let's make the green. I start with the blue, then just add a touch of the yellow. For a nice purple, again, I start with the blue, then add a touch of the red. To make a nice brown, I start with the blue, then add a touch of the yellow and finish it with a touch of the red. Let's start with the ginkgo leaves first. I dip my fan brush into the green underglaze, then touch it to the surface of each of the leaves. Don't worry about the color going outside the lines for now. I'll address how to clean those up in a bit. To get into those tight corners, I'm using my double-angled brush and just touching it to each corner. For the berries, I'm again using my double-edged brush to create circular strokes. Don't worry about covering the whole image. Parts not covered will appear as highlighted areas. I'm using my angled brush with a twist to paint the thinner leafed vines with the brown color. I'm using the number 6 round brush for the bigger leafed vines. Note how the intensity of the pressure when laying the brush down determines the width of each part of the leaf. I added a little more yellow to the green, then applied that to the curled leaf vines using the round brush. For the outlining and shading, I first tested the flow of the black underglaze to make sure it was not too wet or dry. I just use a light touch for the vines and the outlining of the leaf. I use very light touches of the brush with dragging for the leaf veins, making sure I put more detail in the tight edges to give them a heavier shadow. When I need to clean up the lines a bit, I use a diamond core thin stylus tool to shave off unsightly edges, but you can just use a regular needle tool. For the berries, again I outlined them, then to give them more dimension, I added a dot towards the bottom edge. Then I dragged light lines around that dot to create the bottom opened edge of the berry. I also added curved lines from the top edge for more shadow. On to the ginkgo leaf. Again, I outlined the leaves. They have a lot of veins on the inside of the leaf, so I started dragging light lines from both the center, following the V shape, and along the top edge of the pointed center down. I thought it would be nice to add just a little extra lines of green underglaze in between, just for more dimension. For the curled leaves, again I outlined them. This time for the veins, I didn't make straight veins towards the top, but I angled them around so that it really gave the appearance of turning leaves. I continued these steps for each of the thinner leaves from the other vines. Again, you can see how just simple lines really add perspective. Now here it is all painted. I just used the same green to paint over the carved area and straight blue around the banded areas. To continue my eye line towards the center of the cup, I extended the vines to the inside. For this project, I decorated a whole set of mirrored cups that I made from a previous video where I created a homemade polymer clay profile rib. Click the link above if you want to see that video. I simply bisque fired them, then added Amico C11 clear over top of the underglazed imagery for this look. I'm very happy with that. I hope this demo gives you a good place to start on your underglaze painting journey. Again, I have a series of underglaze painting workshops which are much more in-depth where I walk you through each project. Just follow the link in the description. Thanks to the newest members of our Little Street Pottery Research Facility team. If you'd like to join the team and earn a title, click on the Super Thanks button or the link to buy me a coffee. It also really helps us out if you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. See you next time in the studio.